Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland, and so behind me is the house where Napoleon III stayed in London in 1848. Unfortunately, because it's shining so much, you can't see where the blue plaque is. It'd be like about here. So Napoleon III was Emperor of the French, as he styled himself. His father was Louis, the King of Holland. So going back to the time of Napoleon III's uncle, Napoleon I, conquered much of Western Europe and put his siblings on the various thrones of European countries, including Holland. So that's where Napoleon III was born, but when he was a toddler, they lost and they had to flee. So he grew up mainly in Italy, partly in Switzerland. His father died when Napoleon III was quite young, and his uncle Napoleon I had one surviving legitimate son, the Duke of Reichstadt, who died at the age of 21. Therefore, Napoleon III was heir to this Bonapartist claim, thinking he should be Emperor of the French. But a lot of people hadn't accepted his uncle as a proper ruler of France, and he was a Corsican parvenu. And the Bourbon had been restored. The old French royal dynasty that had been abolished in 1792 had come back in 1814, but they were rather unpopular, and they had rolled back some of Bonaparte's reforms. Anyway, Napoleon III was attracted to nationalism in various European countries. In Switzerland, he met some Italian exiles who were plotting to kick the Austrians out of Italy and to unite Italy. So he sympathized with them. So he said that you must march with the ideas of your century, not against them, and being somewhat liberal, having a constitution, having freedom of expression and so on, saying no to absolutism and obscurantism. So he was raised a Christian of the Catholic denomination, but some of his ideas would pit him against the Catholic Church, who was very much against Il Risorgimento in Italy. So it's a time of rising nationalism in Germany, in Poland, in other places. So he made 3 attempts at a comeback in France. Was the first 2 failed fairly dismally, arrested, spent several years in prison. He had a liaison with his washerwoman, had children with her, but of course he couldn't marry her because she was low-born. He felt he must contract an advantageous match. Anyway, 1848, there was the revolution in France. France had several revolutions, and Louis Philippe was sent packing. So Mr. Égalité fled, and there was another republic. Okay, so they were going to elect a president, Louis Bonaparte. He stood for it. I mean, it was really Louis Bonaparte originally, didn't go by his middle name Napoleon for some years, and he indeed was elected president. It said that some people thought that he was his uncle, didn't realize his uncle had died in 1822. His uncle would have been 80 if he had been still alive, which would have been a very great age for the time. So then Louis Bonaparte decided he was going to be emperor in 1848. Sorry, in 1851 he had his coup d'état. The 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, as Marx scathingly called it, recalling that old Hegelian who said history repeats itself, first time as tragedy, second time as farce. Anyway, so Louis Bonaparte decided he was going to be Emperor of the French, and he was going to be Napoleon III, and so it proved, and he got Haussmann to improve Paris, knocking down some minor side streets, building big, broad boulevards, and so on. So France was increasingly confident and popular, expanding in the Far East, gaining control of Indochina, much of which we now call Vietnam, considering colonial expansion, upgrading the armed forces. In the United Kingdom, people felt quite menaced by this. Was there going to be another war like his uncle had fought the British before, and the American Civil War, both sides vying for French support? Anyway, it wasn't to be. So fought various wars in Italy to the Piedmontese War to boot the Austrians out. Semi-successful, got cold feet and pulled back at the last minute. And so some Italian nationalists got hacked off with him, and they attempted to bump him off. Orsini tried to assassinate him unsuccessfully. His men had fought in the Crimean War as allies of the British and the Ottomans and the Piedmontese against the Ruskies. But it all gang awry for him on Bastille Day 1870, the Ems telegram about who could be the next king of Spain, and would a certain Hohenzollern candidate rule himself out, the Hohenzollerns being the kings of Prussia. One of their distant cousins had some sort of claim to the Spanish throne, and he didn't want them to pursue that. Incidentally, he was married to a Spanish noblewoman, Eugenie. He married her at the relatively old age, well, for her of 26. He was much older than that. But it took them 5 years to produce one child, also named Napoleon, known as Prince Imperial. Anyway, so the Ems telegram was set by the King of Prussia. Bismarck, who was Minister-President of Prussia, edited it in a way to make it sound cheeky. Well, Napoleon III took umbrage at that, and being in a hyper-nationalistic mood for Bastille Day, he declared war on Prussia. Very foolish. The Zollverein had been going in Germany for some time, a customs union, but all 36 German states, they all declared war on France in sympathy with Prussia. It was the Franco-Prussian War. This was the first time really Germany, the Germans were all pulling together. They'd often been fighting against each other. Well, I shan't tell you all about the campaign, but anyway, there's the Battle of Sedan, and the French, who were seen as heirs of Napoleon, were defeated. The Germans proved their prowess. That was how he was captured near Sedan, very close to the Belgian frontier. So then there was this peace treaty, and the French had to pay so many gold marks, and the Germans weren't going to withdraw until such time as it was paid. So he had to abdicate. He was held in prison in Germany for a year, then released. He came here to the United Kingdom. He lived in Chislehurst in Kent. His wife and son came with him. He died in 1873. I have a feeling he's buried in this country. So that is Napoleon III, who had a vexed relationship with the United Kingdom, but had been here in this house just before he'd gone to France after the 1848 revolution in February 1848. After Les Banquis de Mer. It sparked off the year of revolutions, but only that French one in 1848 was successful. But he reversed many of its changes when he became emperor. So he tried to appeal to political Catholicism by defending the Pope, keeping French troops in Rome until 1870, saying the Italian state cannot have that, even though he did upset the Catholic Church by supporting Italian nationalism at all. So it was a delicate balancing act for him, but ultimately unsuccessful due to his rash decision to declare war on Prussia in 1870. So his son Prince Imperial lived here, was bilingual, and went off to the Zulu War, got killed there, but that's a story I could tell some other time. All right, toodaloo.